On today's Locked On Jayhawks, Kansas has some good news for the football team for 2024. Mello Dotson is coming back for another year for the Jayhawks.
You are Locked On Jayhawks, your daily podcast on the Kansas Jayhawks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
I'm Derek Johnson. You can hear me as well Monday through Friday from 3 to 6 p.m. on KLWN in Lawrence with Rock Chalk Sports Talk. Thanks for making Locked On Jayhawks your first listen every day. We are free and available anywhere that you hear podcasts. Find us on our YouTube page too, where you can like and subscribe to the show. Thank you to every dayers out there tuning into each and every episode. You can catch our Missouri recap on the other day's episode. We'll get to an Indiana preview later this week, more KU basketball content later this week. But today, we're talking to KU football because Mello Dotson is back for 2024. We're going to discuss the ramifications of that, the KU football cornerback room for next year, impact for the team overall, and overall kind of roster tracking as we're hitting kind of the beginning of the offseason as you're still waiting to play your bowl game here. This episode of the show, though, is brought to you by PrizePicks. Go to prizepicks.com/lockedoncollege and use code LOCKEDONCollege for a first deposit match up to $100. Daily fantasy sports made easy with PrizePicks. So the official announcement from Mello Dotson, he took to Twitter, and it was, I guess it was, it wasn't like I guess leaves open to interpretation and how you want to view it, but I think it makes sense with where you want to go with this. So he just tweeted "back for revenge" is the full tweet, just 3 words, "back for revenge," and it had a video highlight clip of his highlights from the season, right? Returning pick sixes and interceptions, all sorts of stuff, right? I guess if you want to get like all conspiracy-ish, you could just say, oh, well, he didn't say I'm coming back for another year at KU. He just said back for revenge. Does that mean that he's going to come back to college football and enter the transfer portal? It's like, well, I mean, I guess anything's possible, like especially in today's day and age with NIL and transfer portal, where let's not go down that road, though. Let's not go down that road. He's coming back to KU for 2024 unless, something else that happens, and we'll approach that if we get there. I am under the assumption, based on this, he is coming back to KU for 2024. And obviously, this is a huge deal for KU because he was an excellent player this season, and you get him for another year. So Mello began playing in 2020, the COVID year, got real playing time as a true freshman in the last year of the Les Miles regime. And then he became a starter by year 2 as I don't even know. He might have even started some games as a true freshman. I can't remember. But was basically a full-time starter come the back half of the season for year 2 in 2021, full-time starter in 2022, full-time starter obviously this year in 2023. So basically a starter for you the last 3 seasons. That'll make 2024 his 5th season of college football, which would be his last because he taken advantage of the COVID year, which he was given because of that 2020 season. So you have somebody who will be an experienced player, and obviously in the secondary, having that experience very much helps. Obviously, he had an unbelievable year this year for Kansas, and I thought he's gotten better each and every year that he's been at KU so far, and I thought this year was, that next level up. And I think specifically over the last half of the season, you look to the Oklahoma State game that happened kind of midway through the year. Oklahoma State, I think, targeted him in that game like 11 times, and he was credited for giving up like 9 or 10 catches. And so that wasn't, maybe his best moment, right? Like you're going to have bad games throughout the season. Everyone is. And I don't know, maybe that was more of a scheme thing. Maybe it was this or that. Maybe it was just whatever. But from that point on, like he was nailed. And really overall in the season, he was great for it. He was unbelievable. The season you got from 44 tackles, 3 tackles for loss, 1 sack, 13 pass breakups, 4 interceptions. He was a wound up with 2 pick sixes. He had a 79.1 Pro Football Focus grade overall, which that was second among all defenders on KU. Austin Booker was first. Mello Dotson was second. Cobee Bryant was third on KU on Pro Football Focus grade. And also, if you sort Pro Football Focus grade among qualified corners for the Big 12 conference, number 1, Mello Dotson. Number 2, Cobee Bryant. So by one metric, Mello Dotson was the best corner in the Big 12 this past season, and he's coming back for another year. Now, you hope that Cobee Bryant comes back too, and obviously for Mello, you probably hope he comes back too to a certain degree because, that's got to be kind of nice. Like Sometimes Cobee's on the number one receiver. Sometimes Mello's on the number one receiver. Sometimes, those guys get to get the number two receiver and feast and whatever it is, right? So that's got to be kind of nice. But the Pro Football Focus grade for Mello Dotson here included an 80.3 run defense grade. So he was, I think that shows up when you watch the tape. Like, he was a very active run defender, as was Cobee Bryant. Even though both those guys are not, Clyde Edwards-Helaire or KJ Adams in terms of their, muscular build, like, they are willing and they are tough players to get in there and make a tackle and run defense. And that's reflected in the PFF run defense grade. He also had an 80.6 pass rush grade. That's very limited snaps, but I thought that was kind of interesting. And a 78.2 coverage grade on Pro Football Focus. He was targeted 64 times. That was the most on the team. But he allowed an NFL passer rating against of just 72.9. That's a really good number. You might be wondering, what is a NFL passer rating of 72.9 get you? Here's what it gets you. Mitch Trubisky has a NFL passer rating of 72.7. So that's basically what that is. Zach Wilson is a 73.8. Tyson Bagent is a 71.4. Daniel Jones is a 70.5. So essentially, anytime quarterbacks were throwing at Mello Dotson, he was turning them into Mitch Trubisky. That is a win for the defense. And so much so that Mello was even named College Football Network All-America third team. He was All Big 12 honorable mention. Probably should have been on one of the first two teams, if we're being honest. And oddly enough, he wasn't on at least the second team on that or the AP either. But more on that here now, because he's going to come back, obviously trying to, accomplish a lot more and boost draft stock and do all these things. But getting more decorated, I hope is something in his cards. Now, he tweeted this today too. He said, "I probably won't even talk on here no more. I ain't like how they did me, but I know how the game worked now." And he gave out like a tweet earlier about being blackballed, and I think deservedly so. I think there was a week where he had like a pick six and he wasn't like Big 12 Defensive Player of the Week, and it stemmed back to that. Then he wasn't picked in some of these awards, which kind of ridiculous. So I can understand from his point of view. But I think that's what it goes back to the initial tweet where it says back for revenge. You might be wondering, okay, the back for, I got it. He's back for another year. What is the revenge that he's talking about? I think this is the revenge that he, and I think Cobee probably feels the same way, because both Cobee and Mello had unbelievable seasons that they deserve to be recognized and deserve to get all sorts of awards out of it. And they've had some award, right? Cobee first team All Big 12, and Mello this third team, college football Network All-American and All Big 12 honor mention. So those are some awards, but it's not quite the awards they deserve for how good they were. Like, they deserve even more awards than what they gotten. And so you see that chip on his shoulder. So he's coming back with that chip on his shoulder too, which, you look for him to have that big season. But it is also a chance for him to, boost his draft stock, get one more year of tape out there, get one more year of notoriety out there. I think if he went to the NFL draft this year, I feel like he would be an NFL draft pick. I know there was talk that NFL scouts were watching him even in the spring, both him and Cobee at the corner position. So I think he would have been drafted into the NFL this season. But maybe if you go from, I think he's listed 6'1", 190. Maybe you go to 195 or 200. You have another good year. Maybe even improve on some things. Maybe we're talking about a guy who can work his way into being a top 3 round pick in the NFL, and that would be so cool. It's always fun to see these kids go off and get to make a real living here if that is afforded to them, which I think is going to be an opportunity for Mello Dotson, especially if he does have a really big year in 2024, just boosting off what he already has done here in his career in 2023. So I'd imagine that Mello is going to get taken care of here from an NIL perspective. From there, it's an opportunity to kind of leave even more of a legacy than he already has. Continue to build this program for KU, boost his draft stock, continue growing as a player. And, from the KU perspective, it's always good to return good players. It's a very simple thing, but in today's day and age of college football, player retention is as important as, as big as recruiting is, as big as scouring the transfer portal to bring players in, player retention is as big as anything in the world. And now we wait to hear from Cobee Bryant. Cobee can have all sorts of decisions too, right? Cobee can go to the NFL. Cobee could enter the portal and probably, make some money with NIL. But I think Kansas is probably going to pony up some good money for him in NIL to stay at Kansas too. So it'll be decision time for him. And either way, you feel a little bit better now that, even if Cobee does go to the NFL, it's like, okay, well, you have Mello Dotson back, but wouldn't it be cool if you did have both back for one more year in Lawrence? All right, we're going to continue on with what this means for KU, what the cornerback room could look like in 2024, and just kind of overall roster tracking in the early portions of this offseason, even though we haven't even gotten to the bowl game yet for KU football. This episode of Locked On Jayhawks is brought to you by eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. What brings home the winning trophy is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. From superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. Mello Dotson coming back for KU in 2024. What this means for KU overall, the defense and the cornerback room. Well, obviously, like I said, you're still kind of waiting on the decision of Cobee Bryant. So if Cobee is back, then you have Cobee and Mello are just the automatic starters as they were this year, right? Like that becomes the thing, and you kind of pick up where you left off from this year, right? And then the rest of the corner positions and rest of the players there, you're kind of competing for those third and fourth corner spots, which this past year were occupied by Kalen Gervin, who was your super senior, and Quentin Lassiter, who made a nice couple interceptions early in the season. And, you know, there is real playing time there, even for the third and fourth corner. Obviously, when you play teams that, you know, if you're going to run 4 or 5 receivers out, like there's going to be time out there. Both Lassiter and Kalen Gervin had over 200 snaps this past season, and they nearly combined for about 550 snaps. So even if Cobee and Mello are both back, there is still real opportunity for those next corners to, you know, get playing time and make an impact there. And that'll be kind of the discussion. Now, if Cobee does come back, do we see a younger player who's maybe further down the depth chart go to the portal, especially with 3 incoming corners in the freshman class? Like, does that create something where that happens? I don't know. I guess it wouldn't be shocking at all. Now, if Cobee doesn't return, then Mello becomes the one returning starter there. And then that competition that you would have for the third and fourth corner spots now just slides up. It becomes competition for the second starter and the third and fourth corner spots with a lot of guys there. And KU definitely has a ton of talent in the cornerback room for those other spots and to have for the future of this program, because even if Cobee does come back, right, Mello is coming back. Okay, even though Mello's coming back, 2024 is his last year. So you still have to plan for 2025 and beyond. Even if Cobee comes back, you know, Cobee gone after 2024. So you have to be able to not just develop those backup spots and possibly have to emerge one of the starting spots this year, but you want to be building for those 2025 and beyond years for when those guys are gone. And you're talking Demarius McGee, who will be, I believe, a redshirt junior next season, former transfer from LSU, former really highly recruited kid. And he's someone I think could turn into a really good player for you. BJ Dilworth, he was one of your I think he actually was your highest rated recruit in the class a couple years ago. Redshirted his first year, got a little bit of playing time this year. He's someone who I've heard very good things about, whether it was in spring ball or some of the offseason stuff, that he could be somebody to watch in the future. And then you have a ton of either freshmen or redshirt freshmen, assuming these players redshirt, since they didn't play more than the required games. Jameel Croft, super talented kid. Jacoby Davis, another super talented kid. Both those players were really highly recruited for you as freshmen and kind of waited under the wings of some of those older corners this year. And then you have the 3 corners coming in: Jalen Todd, Austin Alexander, and Andre Gibson. That's a really good corner room overall. So I think overall you feel really solid about this room, both in terms of the now and the future, because you look at 2024, okay, that is a lot of, I mean, with Gibson, Alexander, Todd, Croft, Davis, like that could be 5 players who are either freshmen or redshirt freshmen. But if McGee steps into this bigger role, if Dilworth steps into this bigger role, that's a redshirt junior and redshirt sophomore potentially, right? You have Mello Dotson, who will be a 5th-year player. You could have Cobee Bryant, who would be an experienced player too. You have that nice blend of both, and then you get to 2025, and it's like, okay, that could be a senior Demarius McGee. That could be a junior BJ Dilworth. That could be sophomore years of all these young corners, or redshirt freshman years of all these young corners. You feel like you're built pretty well at this position, both for 2024 and for the future years to come. But You know what would make it even better? If Cobee Bryant did come back. So I feel really good about where the defense is at and where the corner position is at with this move coming in. And this certainly feels like a nice piece to the puzzle to have with Mello Dotson back in tow. Now, so overall, when you look at the defense, you still have to stop the run. You still have to get good play from so many other spots, right? I mean, you look at the corner position, and it's one of those tough positions where, like, you can have unbelievable coverage, but if your pass rush isn't getting there, like, eventually, if you have to cover for 7 seconds, then prime Darrelle Revis, prime Deion Sanders, eventually you're going to give a guy open. It's just, it's so hard to do. So, like, sometimes it can be a thankless position in that way. And sometimes it can be a position where you are a little bit dependent on some of the other positions to a certain standpoint. But if you're loaded at the corner position, which you feel very talented there, I mean, like, seriously, like, if Cobee Bryant comes back for KU, it will seriously feel like, to me, KU has a chance to be one of the best corner units in not just the Big 12, the entire country. Like, seriously, that's kind of what we're talking here. If he comes back, if he doesn't come back, I still think it'll be a really good unit, you know? So if you have that confidence in your corners, if you have that guy like Mello Dotson, right? If you have some of these other guys, it gives you more confidence to blitz. It gives you more confidence to send numbers in the box to stop the run. It gives you more confidence to do a lot of different things on the defensive side of the football. And that's so important for a defensive coordinator to have. And so with Mello Dotson, it's not just that. You get the big plays, you get the pick sixes, you get the plays that can, shift the game into your way. And so when you look at the defense as a whole, it's hard specifically just to be like, okay, this move makes the defense this, because there's so many other positions that have, I guess, questions or decisions that still need to be made right now. Like Jeremy Robinson will have a decision. Austin Booker has a decision. Like, a lot of, like, what are certain players going to do on the defensive line? Does anybody else transfer out? Like, at the linebacker position, you lose a lot of production there and a lot of starts in games played. You lose Kenny Logan, right? There are a lot of things you have to replace or overcome, but this is a great start for what the defense can possibly be for next year. And if the defense, does come back in tow and you get some of these big players back in addition to Mello, like an Austin Booker and Cobee Bryant and stuff, the defense took a huge step from last year to this year. There's no reason you can't take another step coming into next year too. And that would be pretty exciting in the new Big 12 without Texas and Oklahoma. I'll get to the overall roster tracking. What has gone down in the early portion of the transfer portal for KU football on this episode of Locked On Jayhawks. This episode of the show is brought to you by PrizePicks, the most fun you can have, winning up to 25 times money your football or basketball season right now. You just select 2 or more players, you pick more or less on their projected stats, and you place your entry. It is that easy. PrizePicks now even offers Apple Pay for quick and easy deposits into your account this football season, and they have deposit matches with our code, which I'm about to get to here in a second. It's super easy to play. You can mix and match different sports. You can stick in one game. You can stick in one sport, whatever your expertise is. Go to prizepicks.com/lockedoncollege and use code lockedoncollege for a first deposit match up to $100. That's prizepicks.com/lockedoncollege with code lockedoncollege for a first deposit match up to $100. PrizePicks, daily fantasy sports made easy. So overall, what does the early offseason look like for KU? I know technically we're not in the offseason because it's not off the season yet. We still have the bowl game upcoming here in a few weeks, but with the way that the portal opens back up at the beginning of December, this becomes kind of a mix of the offseason and in-season, unlike really any other sport. Like imagine in the NFL, it was like, okay, now we're going to play like a game in the middle of March after some of this free agency, or like in the NBA, they're like, everybody just signed on July 1st. Now we're going to play on July 8th or something. It'd just be very weird. So as far as players in, they haven't added anybody yet. As far as players out, Will Huggins is transferring out of the program. He is a 6'7", 250-pound, fourth-year sophomore tight end. I thought he was going to be a stud coming out. I mean, you look at the body, and he was a really good player in high school from the local area. Never really cracked into the lineup much. I know he had to deal with some injury stuff, and that's always unfortunate when that happens. KU also has had a really good tight end group, right? Like Mason Fairchild, multiple All Big 12 or All Big 12 honorable mention pick at the tight end position. We know what Jared Casey's become. Like Trevor Cardell is The possible player next year could be a big breakout player with more playing time, right? You even have guys like Jaden Ham and Tavita Noah on the roster, Carson Brune, who's going to be coming in. Like it's a really good tight end position. So I could absolutely see Huggins going to the next school and doing really well wherever he does end up going. And that is always something when you see a player, who transfers away from the program and does well elsewhere. Like you feel good for them, you're happy for them, but also you're like, man, why didn't that happen at KU? This is just one where it's just, tough when you look at the injuries and trying to get on the field with the tight end room. But then you have Reece Thomas. He was a preferred walk-on receiver. So who knows, maybe he would have eventually earned a scholarship or something. But those are the two right now. So it hasn't been a lot so far. Like I said, nobody has come in so far, but it's a tight balance of numbers. They were actually able to, I don't know if they quite did get all the way to the full 85 scholarships because of the NCAA rule they've had the past couple of years where it's more like basketball instead of what football was forever was you could only bring in 25 guys in that given class. But over the past 2 years, they were like more like basketball where it's like, hey, if you have this many open scholarships, just fill them, just use them. And we'll see if what the numbers are specifically. So I don't know if they fully filled the 85 or if they were like 83, 84, something like that. It's hard to tell in football. They don't have like a thing on the roster that says there's players on scholarship, there's players not, right? And I think part of that's on purpose from coaches because they like to kind of control the narrative from a certain standpoint. But it is a tight balance of kind of the numbers of because they are full. It's almost like a really busy bar or a really busy club. It's like one in, one out. You know what I mean? So it's more about retention than anything. And that doesn't just apply for college football in general. Like you want to retain your players. It really applies for this KU team because you look at how good they were this year, 8-4 season, chance for a 9th win in the bowl game. And you have players who are kind of on the borderline of being able to, do I go pro? Do I come back? Like some of these decisions, do I transfer? Do I come back? And you have a lot of good players with that opportunity. It becomes even more about retention this year than a lot of other years, even previously. So we will have a targets episode. There are a bunch of players that KU has offered. Seems like more so on the defensive side of the ball. They're very much, it seems like going D-line and linebacker have been the two that they're kind of looking at a few tight ends, maybe because Huggins leaving, looking at some offensive linemen. So those are the positions it seems like they've been active in just in terms of like who they've offered to this point in time. But we'll get into specifically who they've offered, the targets, and more about them, detailed stuff later in this week right here on Locked On Jayhawks. You can find our show anywhere you get your podcasts. You can also find us on our YouTube page, or you can like and subscribe to the action. We'll see you next time with Locked On Jayhawks, getting to a KU basketball show on tomorrow's edition with our biggest positives and negatives for KU hoops through 10 games.